Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
How's Moose doing? See him enjoying some belly rubs.
Yeah. He's he's typically really good during the day, just like lays around, maybe takes a nap or two, and then come evening, he's just like a wild man.
Yeah, that's pretty typical of puppies, like the zoomies or like just the witching hour, some people put it.
Yeah. But I don't I know obviously I'm fine like with zoomies, like that's totally do what you need to do, but it's like he's like I don't know, he just is like barks incessantly. Like, does that include like bark incessantly at us and want food?
That's frustration. That means he's bored or something.
Okay.
And he's wanting attention or he's wanting some kind of interaction. Very common with puppies.
Sorry.
So we got zoomies, and I know you said that's not a problem, but then we have frustrated barking.
Yeah.
What other kind of stuff are you looking to address within the home?
Whining for human food. Like whenever we're eating, he's barking at me. And so then I took your suggestion from our last session, and I used the collar on him, and he like walked away. So that seemed to have helped.
That's correct. And I'll give you give you more approaches, but that's one of them.
Okay. And then lastly, just managing him around other dogs. Like if I'm imagining I just would employ the collar if things got out of control.
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out here.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just said like managing him around other dogs, like he'll be sleeping in the house with two other dogs.
Sorry, so I heard managing something other dogs.
Managing him around other dogs.
Okay.
So I know that one happens to be pretty rowdy. One happens to be pretty rowdy, and I know how Moose is like in the dog park or on other dogs. So yeah, just making sure that everyone is comfortable.
Okay, so is it like rough play, essentially?
Yeah, I think the other dogs specifically, I know that he just like humps like persistently. Okay. And I guess like just with Moose, he's never met these two dogs before, but in the dog park, he can get very like playful, biting, standing up.
Sure.
Which I think is kind of, I don't know, typical, but some dog parents seem to have issue with it. So yeah, just if you have any suggestions.
Okay. Anything else behavior-wise?
I don't know. I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Maybe just like, I think Austin was like, how to train him to not be on the couch anymore.
Okay. Is everybody on the same page about that?
I mean, I'm fine. Yeah, if that's what needs to happen. I mean, it's been months and he's been on the couch. I don't know how to really break that.
Sure. Okay. Anything else?
I think those are mostly it.
Okay. So, excuse me, very standard stuff. Nothing out the ordinary behavior-wise. With the humping, are you guys planning on neutering him at any point, or?
Yeah, we have an appointment with our vet tomorrow, actually. We don't have a date, but originally they said between 6 and 9 months.
Correct. So if you end up having to neuter him during the training process, you'll most likely have to cancel the class. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because it usually takes about 7 to 10 days for them to heal from a surgery, like neutering.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So if that happens, no big deal. You just let us know, and then we'll make sure to push that back.
Sure.
The neutering may potentially help with the humping as well, because at 6 months is when the testosterone starts to kick in. So if it's coming from a testosterone place or hormone place, once you remove his testicles, it usually takes about a month for the levels to dip. And then any related behaviors like marking, humping, things like that that are testosterone based tend to go away.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can absolutely correct that as well. So the nice thing about behavior and e-collar is that for behaviors, it's really just using an aversive to stop something you don't want. Okay. So, if you don't want jumping or barking or whining or chewing or humping, it's really just, what's my consequence for these behaviors? Or like the begging. Okay. So in your case, you have one already, which is e-collar. The only issue is applying the e-collar in the home for correctional things. I don't want you to become dependent on it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said there in the console, it's like people with cops. We drive differently with cops around, right? So if that collar's on, he's gonna be, oh, sure, the cop's here, so I'm gonna behave myself. But ideally, because it's in the home, like, you don't want to have that, right? So, what I use, or I have my puppy clients use, is what's called a bonker.
Okay.
Excuse me. And scratchy throat. So
take your time.
I usually keep like cough drops, but 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back. So a bonker is simply a rolled up towel. Okay. You roll it up, and you can use hair bands or rubber band to keep its shape. So it's a cylinder type shape, and you bonk the dog. Okay. So, and I'll explain all this stuff. I have 3 videos that I'll send you.
Sure.
One explains what a bonker is. The other one is how to use a bonker. And the last one is a trainer actively using a bonker. Okay. And he's using it on a puppy, a boxer puppy, if I remember correctly. So e-collar is effective, as you've seen, because dogs are physical animals. And when we apply it correctly, it's speaking their language, right?
Yeah.
So when you put the collar on them for the begging, you essentially nipped at them a couple of times and told them, get away from us. Okay.
Yeah.
But then you have to have the collar. So the bonker allows you to correct him for things within the home and not become dependent on the collar. Okay. The other thing is it's much more personal in the sense that it's coming from you. Okay. So
yeah, that's true.
I like e-collar, or I love e-collar, because it's non-confrontational. However, there is some merit to doing things where the dog knows it's in relation to you, because we're trying to build that relationship of he respects your authority, and ideally over the course of time doesn't do those things anymore. But it's more so because he respects your presence as opposed to respecting the tool.
Okay.
So the issue with using a bonker for everybody is because now it's them physically hitting their dog. Okay. So then I get questions about, well, Jesse, what determines abuse? And I go, well, it's a fucking rolled up towel. Like, really? Right? Dogs bite each other, right?
Yeah.
That's all I say. So we definitely don't ever incorporate negative emotion. No screaming, no yelling. I don't let the dog do things for 10 minutes and trying to say like, please stop, and then finally blow up and then, go overboard. Okay.
Yeah.
So I always suggest that people make at least 3 to 5 of these bonkers, because let's say, because he's a puppy, you go to correct them and you're going to have most likely a psychological hump. Mm-hmm. You're going to have like a hesitation because of this motion, yeah. Right? And then he's going to think you're playing. And he's like, oh, is this a toy? And then he grabs it and starts playing with it, right? So then I keep correcting with the bonker until the dog goes, holy crap, this isn't fun. You're not playing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So my example, because I always love using human examples and personally life examples. When I was growing up, I was raised old school. I was spanked. And there came a point when I was growing up and becoming a teenager that spanking was becoming ineffective for my mother. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time she was spanking me and I started laughing. So she's like, oh, this is funny, huh? So she kept spanking me until it wasn't funny anymore. Because you get sore, yeah. So I was like, okay. So if that should happen, I look at it the same way. You try to spank him, right? And he goes, oh, a toy. And I go, no, we're not in playtime. And I keep spanking until he goes, holy crap, you're not playing. And you make it not fun, okay? Mm-hmm. Once you get that across the first, maybe second time, and he goes, you're not playing, the bonker is no longer a toy, okay? Mm-hmm. If you have a hard time with the intensity, it might take you a bit to get to that point, okay? Yeah. Which is why I send the videos so that people see like, oh crap, like, because when he whacks the puppy, he does it firmly. He does it very firmly. And the puppy comes back and it looks, to some people, they would say, oh my God, the puppy is scared. And the puppy is showing caution, is what we would say, okay? Whenever we're trying to change a behavior, we always want to see caution, okay? Regardless if it's an aggressive type response or something as simple as begging for food, okay? Yeah. The intensity would be appropriate to the behavior. Now, the tricky part is your logic and his logic are different. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, you pop him at a 3 for simply whining for some food. And logically, you go, that should be enough to stop your behavior. Yeah. But for Moose, he goes, that's it. I'm willing to take a 10 if that's the case. Yeah. And then, and especially with puppies. So I actually just did a video training with another puppy client of mine. And we're talking about correction. Yeah. And they have a golden retriever and she's now 15 weeks. And they're like, we correct her with the bonker and everything, but she keeps doing the behavior. And I'm like, that tells me that your intensity is not enough. Mm-hmm. And the logic is like, but it's a 15-week-old puppy. I'm like, yeah, but the mom would bite her if she got out of line. Right? Mm-hmm. And you with the towel, with the whack is never going to match a dog bite. But we're trying to do so as closely as we can. And also in a non-abusive fashion. So a common misconception is a puppy will be a puppy and like run around and yip and bark and chew on stuff and all that crap, right? That's not true. And I don't think I ever sent you my puppy videos. Did I? My puppy playlist? I'll do that as well. I made a puppy playlist of mother dogs correcting puppies. And there's one in particular that I really like. and it's with a Labrador Retriever, and she's got like 10 puppies, and they're just being little noisy brats. And she comes in aggressively, like it looks aggressive, but she's essentially dominating the puppies, and she bites them and corrects them, and everybody shuts up. All 10 puppies shut up because she said quiet. Okay. Yeah. So when I get puppies, they're quiet and they're calm because I correct everything. They can be puppies when I give them permission and they play in the yard, or they play in the playpen and all that stuff. But otherwise, it's speech. Okay. Really? So yes, the other stuff is human logic. Okay, and it's wrong. Okay. So I like these videos because it gives you a visual of, oh, okay, like this is how they handle things, right? So you'd make your list of things that you'd want to stop. I think that's like the easiest for people because then it's like you just know. Yeah. And the moment you see it, you would simply apply either the e-collar, but most likely the bonker to stop the behavior. Okay. So the frustration barking. Let's say I'm sitting down, on YouTube on my computer, and Moose goes, bark, bark, pay attention to me. Whack. Okay. Don't bark at me. Let's say I go and grab some food. He comes over, bark, 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 give me some food. Whack. Don't bark at me for food. Okay. All the stuff within the home that you do not want. Okay. Now the couch one would be different. You would address Moose prior to jumping on the couch. Okay. When you see him walk up and go, I want to go on the couch, that's when you correct. If he is already on the couch, for now, I would simply just remove him, and he'll most likely try to pop back up. You would correct him before he does so. Okay? You can't whack him off of the couch, technically, because he won't know what to do. If anything, he'll look at the couch as a safe place and try to burrow himself into the couch. Okay? So it has to be prior. If he's play biting or chewing now, because he's about 6 to 7 months, correct?
He's 6, yeah.
6, yeah. He might be going through a chewing phase because he's getting his adult teeth. So
yeah, it seems like.
Yeah. So if he's chewing on something like the table or the couch or anything, you would correct, but then you would give him something else in exchange. Okay. Because he's teething. He needs something to chew on. So you can't argue with that. But I can't tell him what not to chew on. So most trainers would teach you to simply redirect the puppy to another object, but nothing would ever say, don't chew on this. Okay. So then what's happening is the dog will keep going back to chew on what it is you don't want him to chew on, because now you're engaging with them. And you're removing him and giving him other stuff. So he's like, oh crap, if I keep going for this, I get your attention. Right? So then I go, all right, you're chewing on that? You want my attention? Whack. Okay. And then I give something else for him to chew on because he is a puppy that needs something to chew on. Okay. So it's what I call the correct and redirect. Anything in the home that you don't want, you can apply this to when it comes to behavior. You wouldn't do this for obedience. Okay. Like I wouldn't say heel and carry a bonker with me and whack the dog every time the dog doesn't heel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally different. Aversives are meant to stop things. Okay. So if I said sit and he didn't do it, I wouldn't whack him into a sit. Okay, because it's not meant to teach him to do something. It's meant to teach him to not do something. Okay. Right. Questions so far?
Yes, I have 2. Okay. One is, so basically, like, if from my perspective, he's fed and doesn't need to go to the bathroom, any additional barking, whining, growling, moaning doesn't need to be the way he acts. Like that's not typical puppy. Or it can be corrected.
Correct. Okay. Now this is not going to not make him communicate to you when he really has to go. Okay. That's a misconception. So my dogs, the way I train your dog is the way I train my dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did not take them out when they whined or anything like that. I had put them on the schedule, so on and so forth. My dogs will go 3 times a day, sometimes 2 times a day, sometimes once a day if they don't want to go out because it's raining or like 4th of July. So like I'll take them out as late as I can, but once the first firework goes off, I know they're not going to potty outside. So they'll hold it till the next day. Okay.
Wow.
So, but let's say I've taken my dogs out twice, and then an hour later, my pit bull starts looking at me and crying. I know she has diarrhea or something, or she just drank too much water and she has to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So they'll still communicate. It's just they've learned to not abuse it.
I see. Okay.
Because very common with puppies is they'll whine, and then the owner, especially if they have like a patio or a yard, will just open up the door. But the dog doesn't learn whine means potty. They learn whine means outside.
Okay.
So then they start to abuse it. And I even get puppies that will fake pee and fake poo. Okay. Yes, this happens. And I actually had someone tell me this on a Zoom console. I have to remember who it is so I can make a snippet of it to say this does happen. So I corrected. If you know, he's already pottied and he ate and he's fine and it's only been like 30 minutes or whatever, you can correct it. Now, there might be the off chance that maybe he did have to go. Okay. So you can actually even correct that. So like, let's say he's whining and you correct him, but then he wanders off and you look at him and then he starts to piddle. You can correct him while he's piddling. Okay. While he's piddling, not after he's piddled or pooped. Okay. It has to happen. It has to be during the act. Okay. And don't feel bad. Don't be like, oh crap, he tried to tell me he had to go and then I whacked him and then he ended up going and I whacked him again. Right. Like that's just the rules. Okay. What he's going to learn is, holy crap, mom and dad don't play. I better hold it. Okay. And I better make sure I empty myself every time we go outside because I'm not going to get to go out until they let me out. Okay. So we always want the dog to accommodate us, not the other way around. Okay.
Oh, that's a good lesson to learn.
And people might think like, oh my God, Jesse, that's mean. But trust me, I've had people accommodate their dog and it's, for the most part, ruined their lives.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because the way they're supposed to live and the way that we live, it does not
right.
really well. Okay. So
yeah.
What?
You made me think of something. So they need he needs like an hour of exercise per day.
So the general rule of thumb is 5 minutes per month of, in my opinion, extraneous exercise. So at 6 months, 30 minutes of a lot of running around. Okay.
Oh, really? Huh.
And then an hour, at his age, he can most likely do an hour, like a long walk, but it's not extraneous. It's just walking, right? However, because you're doing e-collar, it makes it more exhausting because it's not just physical, it's mental. He has to restrain himself and he can't just pee on every tree and meet every dog and jump on every person and pull whatever he wants. He actually has to show a lot of self-restraint, which is why it makes it so much more exhausting. So a lot of my clients will comment on, after a training session, their dog will knock out for hours. Because it's so mentally exhausting and physically because of the contraction of the remote collar. So I would think of it kind of like, I don't box, but I would assume those that do box are exhausted because they're taking the impact of the hits and the stamina and the moving around, right? Same thing for the dog, because that contraction technically is a hit, right? So there's the physicality part of it, there's the movement, and then there's the emotional, or not emotional, a mental restraint part of it, which makes it that much more exercise.
Okay.
So, and you don't have to do 30 minutes every day, okay? If anything, I always tell people opt for the disciplinary exercise because your dog becomes what you practice more of.
Right.
If you practice a lot of excitement and freedom and do what you want, you get that kind of dog. If you practice discipline and structure and then you get rewarded with these things, you get that kind of dog. Okay. The zoomies. Actually, did you have another question, or was that the second question?
I have another one, but it's unrelated, so you can finish the thought.
Okay. I know you don't care about the zoomies currently. Okay. Whenever you see a behavior, I just want you to think, am I going to care about this when he's an adult? Okay.
Yeah.
So in a year and a half, if you're like, holy crap, now the zoomies are just annoying, right? Mm. It'll be a bit harder to stop because he's done it for all his life.
Year and a half. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and you can say, Jesse, that's how I want to approach it. And I say, sure, you're a dog. I don't care. But whenever you see something, just think about it that way. Is the behavior I see Moose doing now something that I'm going to want to see when he's an adult? Or something that I would want him to do when we're at a friend's house or when a guest comes over? Okay. Mm-hmm. If the answer is yes, yes, and yes, then have at it. Okay. Now, let's say, for instance, the couch. Okay. You can do a blend. Okay. You can either do absolutely no couch. You could do, sure, who cares, jump on the couch. Or you could do no couch unless we give you permission. Okay. So that's like a nice middle ground for you and Austin.
Yeah, I do like that. Yes.
The reason why that's healthy is if you have no boundaries on jumping on the couch, if you jump on the couch and maybe you have soup or something, Moose hasn't jumped up on your lap while you have food yet, I think. But that's not to say he won't ever do that. Mm-hmm. Right? So let's say if you got hot soup and he jumps up like, hey, what you got? And he knocks that off and like it falls on you or it falls on the couch and then there's, pain and discomfort, or maybe it falls on him and he gets, soup in his eye, He's not aware of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So by putting it on your terms, it'll help like the begging thing a bit more. But then when you don't need him, or there's a moment where it's like, oh crap, like I hope he doesn't jump on me. You're not worried about that. And then let's say you finish dinner and you want to pop on a movie and do some cuddle time. Here, Moosey. Up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if you do this, I have a dog named Goose, and I call him Goosey. So Goosey and Moosey they worked.
Yeah, they did.
If you invite him on the couch, you then want to teach him how to get off the couch. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because you can't just an hour later whack him and say, okay, I've changed my mind now. Because it's like, what the hell, dude? Right? Confusing. So we want a word like off. Okay. I wouldn't say down because down is an obedience command. It means to lay down. So I would cue the word off, and then you would guide him off. And if he goes to turn around to jump up, you would then bonk him. Okay. So you're teaching him that off means to remove yourself, and now the couch is off limits. And should you try to hop back up, you will be corrected. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when we do this, you're going to get a moment or a stage of confusion because he's like, well, can I or can't I? Right. Yeah. And that's where repetition and time comes into play. Okay. He's like, oh, like I can jump up when mom says up or couch or whatever, but then I have to remove myself when she says off, and then it's off limits.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, that's for those kinds of behaviors in the home. That's the approach that I would use. Okay. Now, if you don't have a bonker immediately available to you, but you need to correct something, you can use the Cesar Millan approach. Are you familiar with him? Nope. He's known as the dog whisperer. He had a show on National Geographic for like 10 years. Oh. Now he's had like a number of different shows. He's had Caesar 911. He's had like Be the Pack Leader or something. He's had like 4 or 5 shows. Mm-hmm. And I think he's actually a good resource for you to watch. You know, when you have time, you can YouTube him. He talks about structure and hierarchy and why discipline is healthy. But the other thing would be he does what we call or term the Caesar touch. Okay, so when Caesar came on the scene, he kind of turned everything on his head because he was approaching things as another dog would. And he was like, if this dog did something that this dog didn't like, that dog would bite him. Mm-hmm. And the way he would replicate the bite is by using his hand and making contact with the dog, right? So he did this because it feels kind of like a bite. Yeah. And you're gauging it according to, you know, intensity and appropriating it to the behavior, so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So like if I don't have anything, like I will correct the dog using the Caesar touch. Okay. Mm-hmm. Again, there's usually a psychological pump or barrier because people think, again, I'm hitting my dog. So it takes some time, one, to get used to that, but two, to develop a feel for what's appropriate to moose. Okay. Mm-hmm. So one thing I have my clients do, and it's kind of silly, but it helps them out a lot, is they'll take their hand and they'll take their other hand and they'll just go like this, right? And they'll gradually increase the intensity and learning the level of discomfort.
Yeah, okay. Right? Pretty hard to do. It's a hard not.
The hard touch, yeah. And so, because if they only do it to their puppy, it happens like almost all the time, where I'll say, correct your puppy, and they go, boop. And I was like, what was that? They're like, oh, that was a 10. I'm like, that was not a 10. That was a 0.01 on the Richter scale. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That gives you an idea, right? Uh-huh. And then I will tell them, and when working with couples, I'll tell them to do that to each other. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, give me a 4, right? And then the other one will do it, and you're like, no, that's a 2, man, right? Mm-hmm. And it teaches you how to gauge without putting it at the, expense of moose. Okay. Got it. And then once you've kind of quote unquote mastered it, then you have an idea of intensity. So when he's doing something, you're like, oh, I don't have my bonker. I think he needs a 4. Boom. Okay. Mm-hmm. In terms of where you can correct, anywhere is up for grabs, but here. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you can do the side of the neck, and you can do the best places are side of the neck and between the ribs and the butt, where there's that soft spot. Okay. Because he doesn't have any protection there. You can also go on the ribs and on the chest and stuff, but you're probably going to get some reciprocation because of you're hitting against a firm surface. Okay. But you have a smaller pup, so hopefully, if he doesn't get huge, it gives you more options in terms of where to correct. Okay. Never feel rushed. Don't try to run in there like, because a failed correction does you harm, in the sense where he's like, he looks at you and he's like, okay, I know what you try to do, but clearly you don't know what the hell you're doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it makes it hard to take you serious. So if you ever see me correct the dog, I will always take my time and do the correct correction at the appropriate time. And I've had dogs be going ape shit on the end of the leash for like a minute or so before I actually step in with the correction, but then the dog immediately stops. Okay. And once you get used to that.
Yeah, love to see a video of that.
Correcting a dog? Mm-hmm. I'll see if I have, and I know I don't have any of it myself, but we have some of dogs being corrected. Well, I already told you about the bonker, but I'll see if I can find like leash correction stuff. But it doesn't matter how long the behavior is being done for, as long as the correction is appropriate. Okay. So like if he's chewing on the corner of a wall for like 10 minutes before I catch him, but when I catch him and I correct him, it is a solid correction. He doesn't care about the 10 minutes prior that he got away from it with it. He's like, holy crap, that correction is not worth it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'll see if I can find some Caesar videos to send you. Caesar touch videos to give you a visual. Okay. Okay. Oh, actually, I do have a video. I have a client that we did that with. Remy video. I'll send that to you. Questions?
I don't think so. I did have another behavior, but it maybe just falls into the bonker realm.
Okay.
He's actually gotten better at this, but either like when I'm preparing his food, barking at me, or like when I'm trying to set the food down, running in at full force and inhaling.
Oh, yeah, bonker. Bonker or the touch.
Okay.
Yeah. There's another way to go about it. So you said you're preparing the food, and when you're about to put it down, he just charges at you and jumps at you?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, like it doesn't even touch the floor, and he's already inhaling the food.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to give you another approach, and this is actually good in the sense that it allows you to start reinforcing calm behavior.
Okay.
So, verses are meant to stop things. Reinforcers are for things you want to see again. Mm-hmm. So in that context, we're not wanting to see Moose be jumping and disrespectful when you're pouring the food. You want them to be calm and collected. Mm-hmm. So for puppies, what I do is, you serve the food, you approach where you're going to feed them, and you're going to go to set down the food slowly, and he's going to jump at you, okay? When he jumps at you, you're going to pick up the food or remove it, okay? And you're going to wait, and he might bark or something. But eventually, you may see him either put his butt down, or you might just see him settle a little bit, okay? If he settles, you would then begin to lower the food again. Mm-hmm. He jumps up for it, you pick it up, okay? And you keep repeating this process. Eventually, Moose should get frustrated, and you'll see him put his butt down. And then I go to lower the food, and then he'll pop back up, and then I'll pick it back up again, okay? Mm-hmm. So what you're teaching him is to sit down and be quiet and respectful if he wants that food to go down faster, okay? Mm-hmm. But you're going to create more frustration in the beginning because he's thinking technically that the jumping and barking at you is what's garnered the food to come down faster. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So he might try that even more before he goes, okay, it's not working. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And you keep repeating that, and eventually I can put the bowl down and remove my hand, and Moose won't even eat it, okay? And then I wait a few seconds, and I would say the word break. And break means now you're free to eat your food. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Should he get up from the sit to preemptively eat the food before I release him, I pick the food back up. Okay? So you have to be quick.
Yeah.
And anytime you're going to give Moose something positive, I want you to think about the state of mind that you're reinforcing at that moment. Mm-hmm. So if I bring out a bully stick for him and he's jumping and barking and jumping on the couch and jumping off the couch and running around going, gimme, 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 and you give it to him, you're rewarding that behavior. Okay? Yeah. So it'd be the same response. If I pull it out, like my dogs, if I pull out something they want, their e-collar, their leash, their prong collar, a treat, their food, whatever it is, they put their butt down and they wait. Okay? There is no sit. There's no verbal sit. It's default.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the canine version of please. Okay? So, and I like default because then you're not saying sit 1,000 times a day. Mm-hmm. He's just like, oh man, you have a piece of cheese, and sits down quietly, like, can I have a piece of cheese, right? Maybe he does, maybe I don't, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, anytime you see him do something, you want to think to yourself, and this includes affection. So if you go to pet Moose and he's going ape shit while you're petting him, you're reinforcing go crazy Moose. Okay. And I'm not saying, because I know it can be cute, and Moose is already a cute puppy as it is, so he's even cuter. Yeah. It's going to happen. You're going to reinforce things, and you're going to go, I know I'm not supposed to, but he's just so cute, right? I get it. But it's one thing when you are rewarding a lot of inappropriate behaviors all day, and another when you're making an exception every now and then. Okay?
Right.
So
I think we've rewarded a lot of inappropriate behaviors for sure.
Yeah, most people do.
Yeah. What? I have two questions and or comments. So like he makes this weird, funny, like growling just noise, like a low growl or like a, I don't know. One time, like he had a stomach ache literally, and he was just like making noises. And the only way he would stop making the noise was if we rubbed his belly. So like, should that with, so that's obviously reinforcing. So like with, obviously like in that situation, he had to go out probably, but in a different situation when he's just like noisy, you just like bonker him.
Bonker, so you could technically ignore technically, right? Let's say it's a super minute behavior and he's like off on his dog bed and doing that, right? Like I actually wouldn't care unless it went on for minutes or even
it goes
longer.
on for minutes. It goes on for minutes. Yeah.
So since it's such a low behavior, you could try ignoring, and then he could possibly learn like, all right, it's not going to get me the attention like it used to, or you could bonker. Okay. There's no right or wrong approach there because the intensity of the behavior is minimal. You have either approach. Okay. If let's say, for example, you do try to ignore it, and then it happens 5 times a day, every day, and is not getting less frequent, then you need to bonker it because he's not getting better. Okay. That's what I always pay attention to. Is this behavior becoming less and less? Because technically by ignoring, you're accepting and allowing. Right. So if like, it's like, if I told a kid, if someone's bullying you, ignore them and hopefully they'll leave you alone. The bully's just learning like, oh, I can keep talking crap to you and you're never going to confront me. Right. So they're going to just keep doing it. So at some point, if I'm like, yeah, that kid keeps bullying you, you need to report it to a teacher or something, or handle it yourself. It's going to keep going. So it'd be the same thing for anything that you see. So that one, you have a couple of options. There's no right or wrong. It's just however you want to approach it. Okay.
And then when you said something about your dog getting excited over the e-collar.
Yeah.
Moose does not.
Moose, yeah, because he's still in the discipline phase.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is, so my guys, the reason they love the e-collar is because they've experienced so many things in life because of it, in the sense that it represents we're going for a car ride and we're going to the park and you're going to run around. Okay.
Yeah.
But when they were in the learning phase, like Moose, they didn't like it.
Okay.
And I'm very black and white, and I was very strict and what's the word? Diligent and disciplined about it. That my mentor, he told me like, he's like, you're a hard ass. You got to ease up on them, right? And all he said was, don't drill it every day. And your dogs are trained now. Now begin to experience life with them. So actually with Fitz, with Scott and Fitz, he had the same problem. And Fitz was not a fan of the e-collar.
Yeah.
And I told him, and I found out that he was too high on the collar, so we lowered that number. But then I also told him, start giving Finn the freedom that you now have. Because the purpose of control is freedom. I can walk my dog over, and let them off leash at the park and run around and zoom around and stuff because I know they're not going to run away. You're not there quite yet. You're still in the learning phase. But then once he starts to not be corrected so much, you'll also start to see him relax a bit more because now you can just go for a walk, cue the word heel, there he is, and then you go and then maybe walk to the park and then he gets to like go to the dog park and play with his friends and then you walk back and heel. Him having the collar on while being at the dog park is good, right? Because you're not applying it, it's just present. So he doesn't think, holy crap, every time this thing is on, it means discipline. Okay, it also means, thank you, we go to the park and all that stuff. Okay. And just to clarify, because I know I said my dogs get excited, but they're also calm. In that setting, when I bring their collars out, they'll come up and they'll put their butt down, but their tail's wagging. But they're calm in the sense of like they're not jumping for it, but they're excited. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions?
Okay. I think that's it.
Was that your unrelated question?
Yeah.
It was.
I think. The food, yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like personally, I would, because you could technically bonk that. Okay. I prefer the up and down approach because it makes them use that little puppy brain and just think about reinforcements. And like, if I want something, what I want to do is put my butt down. As much as I am a big fan of using aversives and correcting dogs because they need it, I'm also a big fan of using positive reinforcement for other behaviors that I know will be just as effective, if not a little more, because he's going to think, man, if I just put my butt down, I'll get it much faster.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll reward that calm state of mind as opposed to, punish. So I would, in that context, opt for the food thing. Be patient, be committed. So if you're in a rush and you can't commit to that, maybe it might take you 15 minutes the first time.
Yeah, it's gonna.
It's fine. You commit to it, because once you get it done the first time, every time thereafter is going to be so much faster. And there's no words here. We don't say sit. We don't say stop. We don't say quiet. We don't say no bark. We don't say anything like that. It's just silence and up and down with the bowl until he just goes, all right, every time I keep my butt down, it comes down, but every time I get up, it goes away. What happens if I just keep my butt down? Okay. And I believe that's everything.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Behavior is simple. When you understand the concept of aversive for things you don't want, it's very simple, and they're across the board. So like, if I talk back to my mom, if I didn't do my dishes, if I stayed out too late, my consequence was spanking, right? Or until I got old enough, consequence was you're grounded for a month, right? Now, groundings don't work for dogs because they don't reflect. They're in the present. He doesn't think about yesterday or tomorrow. He thinks about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Because people say like, well, Jesse, I can put my dog in the kennel and they calm down. Like, why is that not effective? I'm like, because they keep going right back at it.
Right.
Like, it'll calm them down for a few minutes or an hour, but then an hour later, your dog's zooming all around again. Like, clearly, they didn't retain that process. So you have to correct that behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'll just take a look at those videos whenever you send them.
I'll get them to you right now. And then if you have any questions, or feel free to shoot me an email, reach out. Otherwise, this is pretty standard stuff, nothing out the ordinary, pretty typical puppy behavior.
Okay.
And I think if you spearhead it, you'll have a quick turnaround.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. What if, like, I think I mentioned during our physical session that the dog Moose is gonna be with my brother's dog is like very just a lot. I mean, is there anything I can tell them to do?
I'm sorry, so you said their
same
dog?
stuff if they're Sorry, what was that? You broke up.
Their dog is a lot, or your dog, or Moose might be a lot for their dog?
Both, but in this situation I'm talking about, I know that their dog is a lot.
Sure.
I know that he has a history of, I don't know.
So
rowdy behavior with others.
You can tell them what I told you. However, whether or not they'll oblige is another thing, right? Now, actually, before I forget, because let's say you're at the dog park with Moose, the managing of him around dogs and stuff, because you're not going to go with the belt full of bonkers. He's got his e-collar on. And just like you did with the begging behavior, whenever you start to see him exhibit a behavior you don't want, like humping, or maybe he's becoming a bit too much for a dog, and that dog is like beginning to give him like avoidance signs.
Yeah.
And like, oh, Moose is annoying that dog. You would be low on your collar, and you just tap a couple of times. Okay. And you should see exactly what you saw when he begged, which is he walks away.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason we would start lower and kind of you want to find what the number is within that context is because you're just trying to taper him down and not completely cut or kill his play drive. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And that can potentially happen. Like let's say you don't get good connection until finally you're at 40, and then he feels it. And he's like, "Holy crap, I don't want to play anymore." Right? That's possible. Or maybe because now there's rules to the fun, he's kind of like, "Well, what's the point of even playing anymore?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay. You would simply keep bringing him, and eventually he'd find that balance of, "Oh, I can play. I just can't mount dogs. I just can't, bite on their ear." Things like that. I have to respect that dog because it's a 10-year-old dog and I can't play with them, but it just takes repetition. I personally am not a big fan of using cues for behaviors because people tend to fall more on the word than they are on the correctional tool. Okay. But the correctional tool is what makes the word mean something.
Right.
So if every time you say no, you're very good about following through with the correction, your no is going to have a lot of power. Most people go no, 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 whack. Okay? So that's why I'm not a big fan of words, because people will resort to the words more than they will to the correction, when it should just be no correction.
Yeah.
Okay? So the benefit of having a cue like that is that if you've done your homework and you've empowered it, and maybe you don't have your e-collar and you don't have your bonker, you don't have anything, and you see Moose thinking or about to do something or doing something, you would say no, and he's going to just think correction, and he's just going to stop, right? But you've done your homework, okay? So there is a benefit to it. I just I don't recommend it to a lot of my clients because I know they're just going to disempower the word more so than empower it. But if I remove the word and you just correct him, you're more along the lines of eliminating the behavior, because the way a dog brain works is if Moose starts humping a dog and you say no and then you correct him, to Moose, he can hump a dog until you say no. Okay? Whereas you want to teach him, don't mount the dog, period.
Right.
So like I know not to run red lights because I'm going to get a ticket or cause an accident. So I just don't run red lights, right? You're trying to get that kind of thought process to Moose.
Got it.
Okay? So there's no right or wrong here. It's just, what do you feel is going to work best for you and Austin and Moose?
Okay.
Questions?
No, I think you got it.
Excellent. So if anything pops up, you let us know. And then we're on the schedule for next week, right? Or
a week from Saturday.
Okay. Because I know some people have to.
Because we're gonna be out of town.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought I was like, was it you guys or somebody else? Okay. Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah, it was us. Yeah.
Yeah. So any questions, feel free to reach out. And then if you see anything that you're not sure of, always feel free to film it, and you can email me, and I can review it and say like, oh, this is what it was. Or if like maybe you're doing a correction and it's just not working, and you're like, are we doing this correctly? I can review it and go like, oh, like you're not as intense as you think you are, or the collar was misfitted or something like that. So.
Okay. Is it bad that his e-collar? It's over here.
On the throat, no. So the only problem with it being on the throat, if it's super tight, really, is that you'll hear him like.
Yeah.
I mean, too tight. It might be a smidgen loose, but he is a puppy, so the little necks that tends to do that.
Yeah.
You remember that if he's wearing it longer than 2 hours, you want to rotate it if you need to. Okay.
Right.
Because then it just will develop. So then you'd rotate it to another side.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. All right. Thank you so much. This was very helpful.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.